The stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the galaxy's ceaseless dance of planets and suns. Amid this vast emptiness sailed humanity's warship, the Aurora, unlike other vessels that gleamed with intimidating bulk or bristled with weaponry. The Aurora moved with an elegance that seemed almost alive. Its design was unusual, even chaotic at first glance, but every curve and angle had a purpose, every hull panel a reason. To anyone who saw it, it was a paradox. Fragile yet strong, simple yet clever, ordinary yet extraordinary. Alien eyes watched it. Thousands of them. From icy moons to sprawling space stations, alien civilizations observed this strange human creation with curiosity that bordered on obsession. They had never seen a ship like it, and they wanted to understand it. The aliens did not hide their fascination. Scouting vessels hovered near the Aurora, sending probes to scan its hull and sensors to measure its energy signatures. High-ranking officials debated over alien holoscreens, their voices tinged with disbelief. Its weaponry is minimal, one said, shaking a clawed hand. How could they survive in the void of war? They hide something, another countered, her tentacles trembling with anxiety. No species survives without secrets. Yet every time probes were sent, every time their sensors glimmered on the human ship, the humans welcomed them. They opened corridors for inspection, explained engineering decks, and even allowed the aliens to see drills of crew movements. There was no fear, no hostility, only calm confidence. Captain Elias Monroe walked across the bridge, his boots clicking softly against polished steel. He watched the alien observers through the observation window, as the stars reflected in their strange, multifaceted eyes. "They want to understand us," he said quietly to his first officer, Lieutenant Kira Solis. Let them see who we are. It won't matter. They still won't predict us." Kira nodded, her dark eyes scanning the monitors that showed the alien fleets and their scanning devices. "They think a ship can be understood like a machine. They don't realize it's the crew that makes it alive." Monroe smiled faintly. "Exactly. They are studying steel, but they should be studying courage, ingenuity, humanity itself." On the observation deck, alien envoys whispered to one another, their voices barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. "How do they move with such efficiency?" one murmured. "Their reactions, unpredictable. Every system seems alive." "They are fools," another replied. "They show everything, yet nothing is exposed." How is this possible? Inside the Aurora, the crew went about their duties with quiet determination. Engineers adjusted plasma conduits, recalibrated sensors, and monitored propulsion systems. Soldiers performed drills with precision, but their eyes were calm, not tense. Every movement was deliberate, every action purposeful, yet it appeared effortless. To an outsider, it might have seemed ordinary. To a human, it was extraordinary, perfectly coordinated chaos. Monroe moved to the captain's chair, his gaze drifting past the consoles to the black emptiness beyond the observation windows. The Aurora was more than a ship. It was a statement. Humanity was not the strongest species in the galaxy, nor the most numerous. Yet here they were, gliding through alien fleets that had grown curious, cautious, even fearful. "They will not harm us," Monroe said softly, "because even if they try, they will learn what we already know. Strength is not only in weapons, it is in mind, heart, and will." A sudden ping on the communication panel drew their attention. Zarin, a high-ranking alien observer, appeared on the holo display. Her voice was calm but curious. "Humans of the Aurora, why do you allow us to observe you so freely? Most species would defend their secrets." Monroe leaned forward, his eyes steady. "We have no secrets that cannot be discovered through courage and ingenuity. You may scan our systems, watch our drills, and question our crew. That does not make you safe, but it will show you what it means to be human." The alien stared unblinking. Some felt awe, some irritation, and some fear. The humans' confidence was unshakable, their calm unnerving. They had expected pride, arrogance, or hostility. Instead, they saw composure, intelligence, and a quiet determination that made the entire alien delegation uneasy. As the Aurora sailed deeper into uncharted space, past asteroid fields and shimmering nebulae, the crew felt the weight of eyes upon them, yet they remained focused, steady, human. Each star they passed seemed to whisper a promise. They would endure, they would adapt, and no one, not even the most curious observers of the galaxy, would ever truly understand them. And in that silence, among the cold stars and distant suns, the Aurora continued her journey. Humanity's warship was more than metal and engines. It was a living proof of human spirit, a symbol that the galaxy was about to learn a truth it would never forget. The galaxy's fascination with the Aurora grew every day. Alien fleets that once observed from a safe distance began to approach closer, sending scanning drones that shimmered in the void like tiny stars. Every pulse of energy, every flicker of light was meant to probe, to understand, to expose a weakness. But the Aurora remained calm, almost amused, as if it could sense the alien curiosity and knew exactly how to respond. In the command room, Captain Elias Monroe stood with his arms crossed, watching the alien drones move like insects around his ship. "They are trying to measure us," he said softly. "They think if they study our hull and systems, they will understand humans. But they will not. Not yet." Lieutenant Kira Solis looked at the holographic display. "They keep increasing the scans, Captain. They want to know our limits." "They are testing us," Monroe nodded. "Let them. Tests reveal more about the tester than the tested. We will show them that humans are not simple machines. We adapt. We survive." Outside the Aurora, one of the Coalition's smaller ships fired a harmless energy pulse, meant only to gauge the strength of the Aurora's shields. The pulse hit the hull with a silent flash, and the Aurora absorbed it without a single warning light flickering. The alien observers blinked in surprise. It did nothing?" whispered Zarin, her multifaceted eyes wide. Inside the ship, engineers barely noticed. They recalibrated minor systems, adjusted shield frequencies, and redirected energy flows. Everything was done with quiet efficiency, as if the attack had been expected. Every alien attempt to predict the ship's response was met with adaptability the Coalition could not calculate. One alien officer, trembling slightly, floated in the observation chamber. "They are unpredictable. Every response is different yet perfect. How can a species survive like this?" "They are human," another replied, her voice tight with awe. "Humans do not follow patterns. They think, they feel, they change, constantly." Back on the bridge, Monroe walked slowly, his gaze steady on the alien displays. "They believe we can be understood by science and numbers. But the heart of humanity is not measured in numbers. It is measured in courage and creativity, in the willingness to face impossible odds and still move forward." Kira looked out at the swirling alien probes. "They will not stop. They will push further." Monroe smiled faintly, almost sadly. "Let them. Every probe, every scan, every attempt to predict us only proves our point. They fear what they cannot control, and that is the beginning of understanding, or the beginning of fear." The aliens escalated. Small drones began tapping the ship's outer hull, sending vibrations, testing structural integrity. Energy nets surrounded sections of the Aurora, and analytical pulses swept across the bridge in dazzling patterns. Yet the humans never flinched. Their movements, their decisions, their calm presence in the command room were like water flowing over rocks. Unstoppable, adaptable, alive. Zarin floated back to the main observation console, frustration evident in her posture.
"Every scan,
Every probe. It reveals nothing we can use. They show us everything, yet nothing is exposed. It is impossible." Monroe leaned back in his chair, voice steady. "What you see is real. The Aurora is strong, yes, but it is more than strength. It is human ingenuity. It is the will to survive, to adapt, to create solutions in the moment. You cannot predict that because it is not a formula. It is life itself." As the alien fleets hovered, measuring, probing, and whispering among themselves, the crew of the Aurora worked quietly. Each soldier, each engineer, each officer was a part of the living rhythm of the ship. No panic, no haste, only precise, intuitive action. Every alien attempt to understand the Aurora ended in confusion and mounting fear. Across the galaxy, news of the human warship's responses began to spread. Minor colonies and isolated fleets whispered about the ship that could not be measured, could not be predicted, and seemed almost alive. The aliens' curiosity, once confident and bold, had begun to twist into something else, something darker. "They are not like any species we know," Zarin said, her voice low and trembling. "We are unprepared for them. Their ship. It is only a part of who they are. The rest is unimaginable." Monroe watched the stars, feeling the weight of the galaxy's gaze, yet feeling no fear himself. The humans aboard the Aurora had faced worse than curiosity. They had faced hunger, disaster, and endless night in the void of space. They had survived. And they would survive this too. The galaxy wanted to understand humanity. It had sent probes, fleets, and spies. But the Aurora, and the humans aboard it, were teaching a lesson far greater than any alien could have imagined. Curiosity alone could not conquer human spirit, and deep in the hearts of the observers, the first seeds of fear began to grow. For weeks, the alien coalition had circled the Aurora, probing, scanning, testing every system. But curiosity alone could not satisfy them any longer. They wanted answers. They wanted control. And when observation failed, fear gave way to aggression. A massive fleet assembled, stretching across the void like a living shadow. Dozens of warships bristled with energy weapons, each pulse glowing with deadly intent. From the bridge of the Aurora, Captain Elias Munro watched the fleet with calm eyes, his face serene but his mind sharp. He had expected this moment. Lieutenant Kira Solis touched his arm gently. "They are preparing to fire, Captain. This is no longer just observation." Munro nodded. "I know, but fear makes them reckless. They underestimate us because they do not understand what it means to be human. We do not fight only to destroy. We fight to endure. We fight to survive and to teach." The first warning beams streaked across space, harmless at first, meant only to intimidate. The Aurora's shields shimmered, absorbing them effortlessly. The aliens grew impatient and launched a full-scale strike. Energy beams cut through the void like lightning, weapons meant to pierce, burn, and destroy. Munro's voice was steady as he gave orders. "Defensive formations. Adapt to every vector. Countermeasures ready. Focus on survival, not retaliation." The crew moved as one, a perfect rhythm of human coordination. Engineers redirected power to adaptive shields. Soldiers launched maneuvering drones that mirrored enemy attacks, and the ship itself seemed to anticipate the next strike. Every alien weapon that hit the Aurora was met with a calculated response, neutralizing danger before it could take hold. Zarin, the alien commander, floated above the bridge in her inspection pod, watching in disbelief. "Impossible," she whispered. "Every attack, nullified. Every strategy, anticipated. How can a single ship withstand our fleet?" "They are humans," another officer replied, voice trembling. "Not machines. That is their power. They think, they change, they adapt. They survive because they are unpredictable." On the bridge, Munro's calm presence anchored the crew. "Remember," he said, "we do not need to destroy them. We need to endure. Every move you make, every decision must be perfect. Because this is human spirit against fear itself." The aliens unleashed their most advanced weapons, plasma lances, guided missiles, energy nets designed to trap the ship, but the Aurora responded in ways they could not predict. Drones moved in unpredictable patterns. Shields bent energy in directions the aliens never calculated, and the ship itself shifted in space with uncanny precision. Each attack the aliens launched seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving no damage and only growing frustration. In the observation decks, alien crews whispered anxiously. "It is alive," one said. "Its defenses. They are more than technology, they are thinking, reacting, learning." Zarin's eyes widened as she realized the truth. They do not just react. They evolve with every attack. "No fleet in our history has ever done this." Munro leaned on the railing of the bridge, watching the alien ships falter. "They wanted to understand us," he said softly. "They wanted to test us. And now they are learning a lesson no one can teach them. Humans survive because we refuse to be predicted." The battle continued for hours. The void filled with flashes of alien weaponry and defensive maneuvers of the Aurora, and yet no human life was lost. Every crew member moved with silent precision, trust in each other and their captain absolute. Every alien attack failed. Every fleet formation crumbled. Every plan dissolved against the will and spirit of humanity. Finally, the alien fleet began to retreat, shaken and confused. Zarin's voice trembled as she spoke over the comms. "Humans, your ship, it is extraordinary. We cannot defeat you. We cannot understand you." Munro nodded, voice calm and steady. "You do not need to understand us. You only need to know one thing. Humans endure. We adapt, we survive. That is all you need to fear." The Aurora glided through the fading alien fleets, its engines humming softly. The stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the first time the galaxy had faced a human warship in combat, and failed. The humans had not attacked to destroy. They had survived to show the truth. Courage, ingenuity, and unity could triumph over numbers and technology. And in that moment, the first seed of fear took root in the hearts of every alien fleet in the galaxy. They had underestimated humanity. They had thought curiosity would lead to understanding. Instead, it had led to terror. Monroe turned to his crew, his voice quiet but full of pride. "They have seen us at our best," he said. "And they have learned humans cannot be defeated by force, only by ourselves. Remember that. Humanity is stronger than they think, and they will never forget it." The Aurora sailed on, silent and unbroken, carrying with it the spirit of a species that refused to bow to fear, a species that would forever change the galaxy's understanding of strength. The alien fleet retreated into the darkness of space, their weapons still glowing faintly, but their confidence shattered. For the first time, the galaxy realized that the Aurora was more than just metal and circuits. It was the reflection of the humans aboard it, a living proof of a species they could not comprehend. On the bridge, Captain Elias Monroe stood quietly, his eyes fixed on the fading alien ships. "They sought to understand us," he said softly. "Now they see that understanding is not enough. Humans survive because we adapt, because we think differently, because we do not follow predictable rules. That is our strength." Lieutenant Kira Solis looked at him, admiration and pride in her eyes. "Every fleet in the galaxy has weapons, strategy, and numbers. But we have heart, and courage, and a willingness to act when others hesitate." Monroe nodded. "And they will remember that. Fear is stronger than curiosity. Once they feel it, it changes everything." Far away in a shattered observation deck on one of the alien command ships, Zarin floated in stunned silence. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, reflected the void outside. They are not machines," she whispered. "Every move, every reaction, it is alive, it is human, and we cannot predict it." Her officers murmured agreement, the weight of failure pressing on them. They had trained for centuries, studied countless species, mastered every strategy the galaxy had known. But they had not faced humans before. "Not truly. They are extraordinary," one officer said, voice trembling. "Even their failures seem perfect. How can one species survive such chaos and still remain organized?" Zarin shivered, her tentacles curling in thought. "It is not organization alone. It is more than that. It is creativity, instinct, courage. They adapt in ways we cannot anticipate. Every system, every crew member, they are a part of the same living machine." Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora, the crew worked quietly, repairing minor system damage and recalibrating the ship. Their faces showed calm determination, not triumph. They were humans, and humans never celebrated survival as a victory. They prepared for the next challenge. Monroe walked among them, observing each officer and soldier. "You did not just defend the ship," he said. "You defended the idea of humanity itself. That is what they could not break." "That is what they feared." Kira smiled faintly. "They wanted to test our strength, Captain. They thought numbers and technology would be enough. But they forgot one thing: humans are unpredictable. And that unpredictability, that is our greatest weapon." The alien coalition had no way of knowing that their observations, their attacks, and their tests were already being analyzed. Every movement, every attempt to control the Aurora had been logged, calculated, and countered. Yet none of their calculations mattered. Humans did not act according to rules, they acted according to will. And will, in the hands of a species like humanity, was unstoppable. In the silence of space, the Aurora glided forward, leaving behind fleets that had come with arrogance and curiosity, now trembling with fear. Across the galaxy, colonies whispered of the human warship that could not be predicted. Fleets that had been humbled by a single ship and its crew. Stories began to spread, and with them a new understanding emerged. Humans were not just another species. They were a force, a species that could endure anything. Back on the bridge, Monroe stood at the observation window, watching distant stars shimmer. "They will try to study us again," he said. "They will attempt to measure, to analyze, to prepare. But humans, we do not fit into their patterns." We do not follow the rules they expect, and that is power. Kira placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice soft. They will fear us, Captain. Not just the ship, but what we represent. Humanity itself. Monroe turned to her, a faint smile crossing his lips. Yes, fear is the galaxy's first lesson in understanding humanity. We do not fight because we want to kill. We fight because we refuse to be conquered. And in that refusal, we are unstoppable. Across the alien fleets, commanders argued and debated, trying to make sense of the humans they had faced. But logic failed them. Their strategies, their weapons, and their numbers had not been enough. Humans had survived, not through strength alone, but through spirit, courage, and a mind that refused to be predicted. And in that moment, the galaxy began to realize a truth it could not ignore. Humans were more than their ships, more than their technology. Humans were a force of nature, a species defined by adaptability, courage, and heart. A species that no calculation, no fleet, and no weapon could ever fully understand. Monroe's voice echoed across the bridge, quiet but firm. They wanted to understand us. Now they know one thing: humans survive, no matter the odds. And in the silence of space, the Aurora continued her journey, carrying the promise that humanity's spirit would endure, inspire, and change the galaxy forever. News of the Aurora's victory spread faster than any fleet could fly. Across the galaxy, alien worlds whispered tales of the human warship that had faced 1,000 ships and survived. Some stories were exaggerated, some whispered in fear, but all shared a single truth: humans were not to be underestimated. On distant planets, council chambers filled with debate. Military leaders scowled at holographic displays, trying to understand what had happened. They show us their systems, their defenses, yet nothing is exposed, one officer said, pacing. Every attack failed. Every plan we had, useless. How can one species survive like this? They are human, another replied quietly, almost in awe. It is not technology alone. It is creativity, courage, unpredictability. That is what we cannot match. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora, Captain Elias Monroe walked the bridge with quiet pride. His crew worked diligently, making minor repairs and recalibrating systems, but the weight of their victory was heavy. They had survived a fleet that had sought to destroy them. They had shown the galaxy what it meant to be human. And yet the cost of curiosity was clear. Monroe paused, looking out at the stars. They will never see us the same way again, he said softly. Curiosity has a price, and they have paid it. Lieutenant Kira Solis approached, concern in her eyes. Captain, the reports from distant colonies. They are already afraid. Fear spreads faster than knowledge. Even worlds that never faced us are fortifying defenses, abandoning fleets. They don't just fear the Aurora, they fear humanity itself. Monroe nodded. And that fear is the beginning of respect. It is the first step in understanding what humans truly are. Not just survivors, but pioneers, creators, and warriors of spirit. On one remote alien station, children pressed their faces against observation windows, watching humans on distant screens. Why are they so strong? A young alien whispered. They are just one ship. And yet they are not just one ship, an older sibling replied. They are humans. They survive because they think differently, because they do not give up, because they are unpredictable. Back on the Aurora, the crew moved with quiet determination. Engineers patched minor hull damage, recalibrated shields, and monitored energy flows. Soldiers cleaned weapons and practiced maneuvers, but there was no celebration. Humans never celebrated survival. They prepared for the next challenge, always thinking ahead, always adapting. Monroe observed them, pride swelling in his chest. Every fleet they have tried to study us has learned the same lesson, he said softly. Humans cannot be measured, cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled. And that lesson will spread until the farthest reaches of the galaxy know it. Kira smiled faintly. They wanted to understand us. Instead, they live in fear. That is a victory greater than any battle. Far away, Zarin and her officers convened on a command ship, voices hushed with tension. We underestimated them, she admitted. We thought curiosity would be enough. Observation, analysis, strategy. But humans, they are different. We cannot predict them. We cannot calculate them. We cannot control them. They survived because they did not follow rules, another officer added, because they do not act like us. They adapt in ways we cannot imagine. They endure, always. The alien fleet commander clenched his claws in frustration. We wanted to understand them. Now we live in fear of them. One ship, one crew. They changed everything. Aboard the Aurora, Monroe stood at the observation window, gazing into the infinite darkness of space. Fear is a teacher, he said quietly. They sought to understand humanity. Instead, they have learned caution, respect, and terror. That is the price of curiosity. Kira joined him, her voice soft. Do you think they will attack again? Monroe shook his head slowly. Not yet. Fear slows them. They will retreat, rebuild, and plan, but they will always remember that humans cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled, and cannot be broken. That knowledge and fear last forever. The crew continued their work in silence, each movement deliberate and precise. They had faced the galaxy's curiosity and survived, but they knew survival was only the beginning. Humanity's strength was not in destruction. It was in endurance, adaptability, and spirit. And the galaxy would never forget it. As the Aurora sailed onward through the stars, the first whispers of legend began to spread. The human warship that had defied an entire fleet, the humans who could not be measured or predicted, the species that inspired awe and fear in equal measure. Humanity had shown the galaxy one undeniable truth. To face humans was not to conquer them, but to confront an unstoppable force of creativity, courage, and life itself. And that force would continue to grow, shaping the galaxy in ways that no one, not even the most advanced alien minds, could ever foresee. The galaxy was quiet, but the silence carried tension. News of the Aurora's triumph spread faster than any fleet could travel. Worlds that had never seen humans now whispered stories of the ship that had faced entire alien fleets and survived. Some called it legend. Others called it a warning. Every civilization, from the largest empires to the smallest colonies, felt the ripple of fear that humanity had left behind. On one distant world, a military council convened. Screens glowed with images of the Aurora, showing its sleek design, its adaptive defenses, and reports of alien attacks that had failed. They are not just another species, said one officer, his voice trembling. They are unpredictable, creative, and unstoppable. A single ship, a single crew, yet they defeated an entire fleet. They survive because they do not think like us, an older advisor replied. They adapt in ways no calculation can anticipate. They are dangerous, more than any weapon we have faced. Meanwhile, aboard the Aurora, Captain Elias Monroe walked quietly through the corridors. His crew worked diligently, repairing systems, analyzing past attacks, and preparing for the next unknown challenge. There was no arrogance in their steps, no boastful pride in their eyes. Humans did not celebrate survival. They prepared for the future. Lieutenant Kira Solis joined him, her eyes scanning the stars outside the observation deck. They fear us, Captain, she said softly. Even worlds that have never faced humans are strengthening defenses. Preparing fleets, they are afraid, Monroe nodded. Fear is powerful. It teaches respect faster than understanding ever could. They wanted to know us. Instead, they have learned caution. That is our legacy, one they cannot erase. Across the galaxy, children on distant planets whispered the stories of the human warship. It moved like a living thing, one said. It was not just a ship, it was humans themselves. They survived attacks no fleet should survive, another replied. They do not act like the rest of us. They change, they think, they endure. That is why they are strong. Even alien scholars struggled to analyze what had happened. Every tactic the coalition had tried failed. Every calculation had been rendered useless. The humans aboard the Aurora had shown a form of strength no one had expected: adaptability, courage, and unity. It was not brute force that had protected them. It was human spirit. Back on the bridge, Monroe watched the stars, feeling the weight of the galaxy's gaze on his crew. They do not understand us, he said quietly. They cannot. They can watch, calculate, and study. But human will, courage, and ingenuity, that cannot be measured. Kira placed a hand on his shoulder. The galaxy will remember them, Captain. The humans. They will be the standard of fear, respect, and legend. Monroe smiled faintly. Yes, but they will also remember that we fight not to destroy but to survive. To endure. To show that even against impossible odds, humanity thrives. That is the power they cannot comprehend. In the far reaches of space, alien fleets began changing their strategies. No longer would they act with confidence. No longer would they underestimate a single human ship. Plans were rewritten. Weapons recalibrated, fleets reinforced. Fear had entered their calculations and it could not be removed. Yet aboard the Aurora, life was calm. Engineers fine-tuned systems, soldiers trained quietly, and officers analyzed data from past attacks. The ship moved with grace, every action precise, every crew member synchronized. Humans had survived, but survival was not their end. It was the beginning of something greater. Monroe walked to the observation deck and gazed at the stars stretching endlessly ahead. "The galaxy wanted to understand us," he said softly. "They believed technology and strategy could conquer humans. Instead, they discovered something far greater. Humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans cannot be predicted, and that is their greatest fear." Kira smiled, her voice barely a whisper. "They will speak our name with caution from now on. Even in places we have never been, they will remember what humanity can do." Monroe's eyes shone with quiet pride. "Yes, they will fear us, respect us, and perhaps one day they will understand. But they will never control us. That is the promise of humanity, the enduring, unstoppable spirit of our species." The Aurora sailed on through the silent stars, leaving behind stories, whispers, and legends. The echoes of fear rippled across the galaxy, and every alien fleet, every council, and every colony learned a hard truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were more than ships, more than weapons. They were a force defined by courage, ingenuity, and spirit, and that force would only continue to grow. The Aurora sailed through the endless black of space, its hull gleaming softly under the light of distant stars. A calm energy filled the ship, a quiet pride that flowed through every corridor and every crew member. They had survived attacks that no other species had endured, faced fleets that had come with arrogance and curiosity, and had emerged unbroken. Captain Elias Monroe stood on the observation deck, gazing at the infinite expanse before him. The stars seemed to shimmer with understanding, as if even the universe itself recognized the significance of what humanity had accomplished. "They will remember us," he said softly, almost to himself. "Not because we destroyed them, but because we lived, because we endured, because we adapted when all odds were against us." Lieutenant Kira Solis joined him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "They fear us, Captain. Entire fleets, distant worlds. They whisper our name with caution. Even those who have never seen us understand the legend of humans now." Monroe nodded. "They will never forget. Humans do not fight only to win battles. We fight to survive, to endure, to show that life cannot be contained, predicted, or controlled. And that is a lesson no one forgets." Across the galaxy, alien fleets adjusted their formations, their strategies rewritten, their confidence replaced by careful calculation. The humans aboard the Aurora had taught them that no matter how advanced a species thought itself, the heart of a human could never be fully understood, and that unpredictability was a weapon more powerful than any fleet. Zaharin, the alien commander who had once observed the Aurora with curiosity, floated silently above a distant warship. Her eyes, wide with awe and lingering fear, traced the last signals of the retreating human ship. "They are extraordinary," she whispered, "not because of their technology, not because of their ships, but because of themselves, the humans. They are alive in a way we cannot measure." On the Aurora, the crew moved with quiet efficiency, each member aware of the weight of their actions. Engineers fine-tuned the ship's systems, soldiers trained with precision, and officers monitored the stars, ready for any unknown challenge. Yet there was no arrogance, no prideful boasting. Humans did not celebrate survival. They prepared for what lay ahead. Monroe walked among them, feeling the pulse of life that made the Aurora more than a ship. "Every decision you made," he said, voice calm but full of emotion, "was a part of something greater. You did not just protect a vessel. You represented humanity itself. And humanity cannot be broken, not by numbers, not by weapons, not by fear." Kira's eyes glistened as she looked around at the crew. "They will speak our name for centuries, Captain. Not as enemies, but as a warning. As proof that humans cannot be predicted, cannot be controlled, and cannot be defeated easily." Monroe smiled faintly. "Yes, and let them. Humans survive, humans adapt, humans endure. That is the truth we carry across the stars, and the galaxy will know it. In fear, in respect, and eventually, in awe." In faraway colonies, stories of the Aurora spread like wildfire. Children whispered about the ship that had faced a fleet and lived. Military academies studied its maneuvers as cautionary tales. Entire civilizations began to see humans not as a species to measure or control, but as a force of nature, unpredictable, creative, and unstoppable. Even the most powerful alien leaders, sitting in their towering halls, paused when the name of the Aurora was mentioned. Fleets once confident were now wary. Plans once certain were now cautious. The legend of humans had begun, and with it, a permanent shift in how the galaxy viewed one species, Earth's children. Monroe returned to the observation deck, gazing at the stars, feeling the quiet hum of the ship beneath his feet. They wanted to understand humanity, he said softly, and they will never fully succeed. They can observe, they can study, they can fear, but the heart of a human, that cannot be measured, it cannot be predicted, it cannot be conquered. Kira stood beside him, voice calm but proud, and that is the legacy of the Aurora. And every human aboard her. We survive, we endure. We inspire fear, respect, and awe across the galaxy. Monroe nodded, eyes reflecting the distant stars. Yes. Let every fleet, every colony, every civilization remember one thing. Facing humanity is not facing a species. They face the spirit of life itself. And the human spirit is unstoppable. The Aurora sailed on, silent, steady, unbroken. Across the galaxy, fear and respect spread, intertwined with stories of ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. Humanity had proven its truth. Survival was not just about strength. It was about heart, will, and the unyielding drive to endure. And as the ship moved through the infinite darkness, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never forget humans, nor the lesson they had taught, that no matter the odds, no matter the enemy, no matter the fear, humanity endures. And in that endurance lies a power the universe cannot predict, cannot control, and cannot defeat.